How's it going? My name's Bradley with Allaqcess Sports, bringing you another episode of our sleepers, studs, and stacks. This is where we look at guys under $5,500, those high-priced guys that you're probably wanting to get into your line, but you need to make sure they're worth it, and then some quarterback, wide receiver correlations and stacking them together and how we can make the best lineup possible. It's bright and early on Friday morning, so let's make some predictions for what happens on Sunday. If you've been here before, I appreciate you stepping back into the Allaqcess Lounge, but if it's your first time here and you enjoy this video at any moment in time, consider giving it a thumbs up, commenting your lock of the week down below, and subscribing so you never miss another video. I know I talk pretty fast, but I just want to hit the important points for you. You're probably going to be watching several videos, so let's get through this one as quickly as possible. So I know we talked about a lot of these players in last week's video, and we got to hit it so you can know that we're staying honest with how we do. This is one of the lineups that we put out there, and we did have a dud of a game from Juju Smith-Schuster, who did get injured. Jatavion Sanders came up for us in a big way, but obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown saved the day in one of these single entry tournaments. And that's what I play, a lot of double ups and single entry. And sometimes I'll throw a little at the Millionaire Maker, and I'm doing it this week. So of course we got to start at the quarterback position. And obviously if you go under $5,500, that's where you're going to get some of those quarterbacks on really bad situations or just bad quarterbacks in general. But there are a couple of there this week that could be playing. Justin Herbert obviously playing against a pretty good New Orleans defense. The Chargers don't throw the ball enough to make me really excited about that one. But you do get Spencer Rattler on the opposing side. So maybe that means it's a short field or bonus opportunities for the Chargers offense with Rattler throwing an interception or likely to throw an interception. Marcus Mariota could be starting against Chicago. I don't like that at all. That Bears defense is pretty good. Jameis Winston going up against a Baltimore Ravens defense that is 30th in the league in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers or quarterbacks, and we know that he likes to let it rip. The problem is he doesn't have a lot of weapons on the outside with Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku. I don't trust either one of them or Elijah Moore, so that's going to be a pass for me. If there's one that I absolutely had to play, and it's not 55, but it is 56, it's Bo Nix going up against my Carolina Panthers, arguably the worst defense in all of football, giving up a ton of rushing yards, a ton of passing yards. Cortland Sutton let me down last week. No Josh Reynolds. They're going to need some other guys to step up in a big way for this Broncos offense in order for me to believe in Bo Nix in this one. Because personally, I think you just turn around and hand the ball off to Javonte Williams. But if you're looking to get 3 or 4x your value, Bo Nix has basically done it every week with the exception of this one against the Jets. There's a lot more to like at the top of the board. Lamar Jackson against the Cleveland Browns. That's a terrible Cleveland Browns offense, again, with Jameis Winston. So you do have a bad offense, a quarterback that can or doesn't like to, but is commonly turning the ball over. I think Baltimore gets a couple of extra possessions in this one. The problem is if they're playing from so far ahead, Lamar Jackson doesn't have to do a whole lot of passing. He's just going to turn around and hand the ball off. Probably doesn't have to do a whole lot with his legs either. Josh Allen against the Seattle Seahawks, 28th in the league in rushing yards allowed. I think Seattle has big gains or allows big gains to James Cook and Josh Allen via their legs. Plus the addition of Amari Cooper is a nice compliment for this Buffalo offense. But I prefer to save a little bit of money in my favorite plays. There's 3 of them. 3 quarterbacks that I absolutely love this week. Number 1 would be Jalen Hurts against the Cincinnati Bengals. We know the Bengals offense can score. The Eagles, their defensive back situation has given up some big games. Look at a few weeks ago when they lost 33-16 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think we kind of have a similar situation. We know Cincinnati can score. We know Philadelphia is going to need to pass in this one. With everyone riding Saquon Barkley in that run game, which should be pretty good, I might want to fade a little bit differently and go with Jalen Hurts and the wide receivers in this one. Again, when Jalen Hurts' weapons are healthy, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, he's had some really good games. Again, 7,500, we get a 3x, almost 3x. We get a 3x game here. He's consistently done that. Now you get a basically 20th or 21st across the board defensive rankings for the Cincinnati Bengals. We know the Bengals can score. The Eagles will have to keep pace, vice versa. I like both of these offenses Sunday. Potentially my favorite one, though, of those 3 with Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and Jordan Love would be Jordan Love going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that ranks 31st in the league in passing yards, around 273. And it's not because they're like ahead of the Jaguars, right? Like the Jaguars aren't leading teams and it's forcing them to throw the ball. They're a terrible defense. They're an offense that's been inefficient with Trevor Lawrence giving up a lot of interceptions and turnovers this year, a lot of fumbles from that team as well. Jordan Love, if he has his full plethora of weapons, is going to be dangerous, even if 2 of those wide receivers or one of those wide receivers misses the game. With Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, I think are all being potentially injured or were limited practice participants. You know who to target in on a little bit more. But Jordan Love running him naked in this one, I don't think is a bad idea. Again, 31st in the league in passing yards allowed. I slightly mentioned Joe Burrow. We won't go too far in depth in it. Again, you see the numbers look good against Philadelphia, but those defensive backs have been the weaker point of that defense. Played much better over the last 2 weeks, but it was against bad offenses. CJ Stroud gets a Colts team that struggled against quarterback and struggles against the run. I think those safeties play a little bit deep, trying to or plays close to the line, trying to slow down Joe Mixon. I look for CJ Stroud to have a good game with Stephon Diggs, talking about our correlation and our stacks there. So CJ Stroud with his weapons could be interesting to me. Hopefully Tank Dell has a bounce back week. Baker Mayfield, no thank you, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin being out. Do we play Kirk Cousins? Do I buy into Drake London's technically wide receiver 3 on the fantasy year? Bucks are pretty weak defensively against the pass. I'm just saying, if you want to make a splash, Kirk Cousins might be him. The problem is the Bucks might not score a lot, thus eliminating the real need to throw. But if you're a believer in the Bucks offense and Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Cade Otton stepping up in a big way, Sterling Shepard stepping up in a big way, maybe you do go with Kirk Cousins at $6,200. My problem is he's had 12, 8, 12, and 10, and that one big 500-yard game to get him 38. I don't think we're getting a 500. Don't think we're getting a 400. Don't think we're getting a 300-yard game out of Kirk Cousins this week. Under $5,500 running backs that we like. And again, I know it gets tough here. The wide receivers is really where you find a lot of value under $5,500, but we've always done it this way. We might have to move this up to $6,000 in the future because there is a little bit of a pocket there that we do like. Zach Charbonnet, if Kenneth Walker is going to be out this one, I know he's dealing with a little bit of a injury. He was limited in practice earlier this week. Could have been a birthday hangover, right? Zach Charbonnet going up against this Buffalo Bills team. $5,400 could draw some interest. It's not a bad Buffalo defense, but it's a Seahawks team that needs to play complementary football. They need that run game in order to have that passing game operate well. One last one that would be interesting to me is Tyler Allgeier. Again, he's consistently getting touches, whether they're ahead by a lot, by a little, whatever it may be. I expect Atlanta to be playing ahead. I think they kind of run the ball out in the fourth quarter, which means Bijan and Tyler are probably going to get some additional touches late in the game. I'm not expecting a 22-point game out of him, but I could certainly see him getting into 12, 16-point range. If we get a touchdown out of him, that is spectacular for us. Again, I expect Atlanta to be winning this one against a Buccaneers team that I don't think is going to sustain as many drives with McMillan, Palmer, and Shepard at the wide receiver position, opposed to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Play on the short field, additional possessions. Allgeier will have his opportunities to touch the ball. At the very top, Saquon Barkley, we mentioned it at the beginning of the video. I think he is going to be one of the most, if not the most popular pick going up against that Cincinnati Bengals defense, who cannot stop the run. They could call a plumber and still wouldn't be able to fix a leaky faucet or stop it from running. Again, 21st in the league against the run, just not very good. I expect Saquon Barkley to get over 100 yards in this one. I do expect Cincinnati to win, so I don't know how that's going to play out, but if everyone's playing Saquon, I kind of want to be different, so that's why I do have some interest in Jalen Hurts, but he's definitely a fantastic play. Kenneth Walker, if he plays going up against that Buffalo Bills defense, I like, don't love, especially if he is still dealing with an injury or an illness, Joe Mixon. It says 22nd, okay? It says 22nd in fantasy points allowed to running backs. But when you click in, you go to Joe Mixon, you want to look at this matchup, they rank 31st in the league in rushing yards allowed to the running back, and I absolutely love that number. Joe Mixon, a 29-point game, a 30-point game, a 29-point game, now playing indoors at home, a game you're projected to win. I love Joe Mixon this week. I know a lot of people are probably talking about him, but I don't know if enough people are talking about him. If he's at $8,000, I think he still has a chance to get to 24. I think he has a chance to get to 30. I'm slamming Joe Mixon into my lineup. There's a couple of running backs that I truly love. Joe Mixon is one of them. James Cook going up against that Seattle defense, again, ranking pretty low on the rush yards per game allowed. James Cook, who has been a little bit quiet a couple of games, I look for James Cook to get back in a big way this week. Amari Cooper, something for the Seahawks to worry about on the outside. They have a pretty good pass defense. Devon Witherspoon, Reek Woolen made a trade to try and shore up that rushing defense. I don't think it's going to matter in this one. Give me James Cook. I think he's a very good play this week. And finally, Kareem Hunt coming off back-to-back 20-point fantasy games. I do like this one, again, going up against a rush defense that ranks 23rd in the league, giving up almost 140 yards rushing per game. The Kansas City Chiefs, if you're as confident as I am that the Chiefs are going to win this one handily with or without DeAndre Hopkins playing, why would you not just want to run the ball with Kareem Hunt? We know Kansas City can score. We know there's going to be touchdowns scored in this one, and Kareem Hunt has been doing a good job of getting into the end zone in the last 2 games they've played. Yeah, I like Kareem Hunt. I'm locking him in. Wide receivers that are under $5,500. And before we get to that, you see all these Qs. That's a lot of questionable tag. There's a lot of guys that are out and questionable at the top. Nico Collins remains out. Chris Godwin. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard. All of them are obviously good plays. Playing from behind, Baker's going to need some sort of target. If I had to rank them, for me, it would be McMillan, Shepard, Palmer. Got it? McMillan, Shepard, Palmer. That's how I rank them. And I also love Cade Otton. Mike Evans out. Tyreek Hill wasn't spotted at Thursday's practice. Jalen Waddle limited in Thursday's practice with Tyreek Hill or Tua Tagovailoa possibly playing and returning in this one. I like it with Tyreek and Waddle. Without that, I do like the Arizona side of the ball. Zay Flowers did not practice yesterday. They expect him to practice today, Friday, so we'll have to wait and see that report. Again, that is a bad Cleveland team, but I don't know how much throwing they actually have to do in this one. It has a really, really low floor and a high ceiling when they're in shootout games, but if they're playing from ahead, they're just going to run it with Derrick Henry. No, thank you. Jaden Reed dealing with an injury, limited practice participant on Thursday. So look at Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. If you're wanting to pair one of them with Jordan Love, I think you can get them at a really affordable price. Dontavian Wicks as well. The problem is you don't know which one of them is going to pop off each and every week, but they have a fantastic matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, ranked 31st. So if someone's missing, you can get an even better value from these Packers wide receivers. 3 more that we have to get to. Deontay Johnson hasn't been practicing. Whether he's actually nursing an injury or the Carolina Panthers are willing to trade him, we don't know. DK Metcalf, nursing a knee injury. Has not practiced, will not practice. Will be reevaluated on Friday this afternoon and Saturday to see if he's good to go for Sunday. So keep an eye on that for JSN and Tyler Lockett news. Chris Olave, I believe, has been released from concussion protocol, practice in full Thursday, so he'll probably be back for Spencer Rattler, but again, that is a pretty good defense that ranks top 10 in passing and in rushing. And then lastly, Jameson Williams, who decided, you know what, even after a 0-point game, he popped a little addy. Woo, we covered a lot of ground. So where do we start? Because that's a lot of injuries that we got to replace. Jalen Waddle we talked about. If he's good to go, yeah, I like it against an Arizona defense that hasn't been fantastic this year. Jacoby Myers playing from behind against Kansas City. I just don't trust Desmond Ridder at all. Dontavian Wicks, if Jaden Reed's not able to go, you know, we've seen him have big splash weeks with a 13-target, 6-target, a 7-target game. If Jaden Reed's playing, obviously don't like him as much. Cortland Sutton coming off of a dud of a game at 0 points with 0 targets. You didn't have to do too much offensively, and I don't think you're going to have to do too much offensively again to beat my Carolina Panthers. I think Bryce Young has difficulty against this defense, so I'm going to shy away from Cortland Sutton, but $5,300 is still dirt cheap for him season long. Jerry Jeudy's kind of an interesting play to me. I don't know if I love it, right? Jameis Winston's going to want to throw the ball. He's going to want to let it rip. You're playing from behind against Baltimore. Baltimore's a team that struggles against the pass. Is Jameis Winston going to come out here and just magically throw for one of his 300-yard, 3-touchdown, 3-interception games? Like, is LASIK Jameis going to be coming out? I mean, it's your number 1 wide receiver, but you're a terrible offense. But you're playing a defense that can't really stop the pass. Teams have to pass against them, have to try and throw against Baltimore. And that's exactly what the Browns are going to need to do. $4,800 is pretty cheap for Jerry Jeudy. Westbrook Akine and Tyler Boyd. It's obviously going to be Boyd. His snap share shows that Tyler Boyd is probably going to be the biggest elevator, but besides Calvin Ridley, with the absence of DeAndre Hopkins. So at $3,900 going up against Detroit. Detroit, a team that struggles against the pass, but that's because teams have to throw it because the Lions are scoring so quickly and so high. Teams have to try and pass the ball down the field. So it's not a weak defense, but it's one that gives up a lot of yards. Tennessee Titans going to have to get it done in the air. Tyler Boyd going to be a big beneficiary at $3,900. Sterling Shepard we kind of alluded to earlier. Jalen McMillan at $3,700. Again, 8 targets last week, leading the team. Once Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down, so at $3,800, he is my favorite. $3,700, he is my favorite of the Buccaneers wide receiver. It's a defense that's okay against the pass, struggles against the run, doesn't get a lot of pressure in Baker Mayfield's face. Baker Mayfield's obviously going to have to throw it. If we can get another game like we did last week, maybe a few more yards besides 15. And then at the top, with so many injuries, we talked about your options are kind of limited. Drake London quietly, wide receiver 3 on the season. Stephon Diggs, I think, is in for a good game if you don't want to play Mixon because his price tag is a little high and you think these safeties play in for the Indianapolis Colts. I think Stephon Diggs can get over the top. Jamar Chase, probably my favorite play going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, a few weeks ago, they've made some changes, Vic Fangio in that defense, but a few weeks ago, this defense lost 33-16 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gave up some big plays in the passing game. I look for Jamar Chase to have one of his massive, massive games in this one. Even if you think the Bengals lose, it's because the Eagles are scoring. Two of my favorite plays in terms of value would probably be these two guys back to back, right? I talked about Jaden Reed. I love Devonta Smith. I love DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore even more if Marcus Mariota is playing on the other sideline because I think he can get into a little bit of trouble. He had a flash in the pan last week playing against my Carolina Panthers. But they'll make anybody look like a superstar. Bears defense is the real deal. If they can get a couple of turnovers, short drives, flip the ball over, flip the field, I think DJ Moore can have another really good game. He hasn't been a disappointment most of the year, 11-15, 11-30. I don't expect a 6-point game where they're just absolutely demolishing the other team. If Jaden Daniels plays, I still like DJ Moore because it's a competitive game and they have to keep throwing the ball. So I like it at 6,600, but I like even more Devonta Smith in this one. Again, that is a Cincinnati Bengals defense that is pedestrian and average at best. And we know Cincinnati can score, so Philadelphia can't afford to just run the ball down your throat. I don't expect to get a 0-point performance where they're beating a team 28-3. It's a what have you done for me lately league. Don't be disappointed and scared by 6,900. He drops to 6,600, his lowest price tag on the season. I don't think you always necessarily have to pay up for a tight end. You can kind of find some at value. But this week, I think you kind of have to pay middle of the road. You don't necessarily have to get Brock Bowers, who's in a really good spot playing against Kansas City. They're going to have to throw, and he's probably their best weapon. I don't think me or you are arguing that. It's either him or Alexander Madison. So yeah, I'm going with Brock Bowers as the best weapon. David Njoku, lacking weapons once again. Evan Ingram has been very highly used since coming back. 15 targets in the last 2 games. Tucker Kraft, when they have their full complement of weapons, I don't like as much. So in this range, though, I think you might have to land. Unless you want to be smart and go with Cade Otton, who over the middle of the field might be the next guy up in the absence of Chris Godwin. 10 targets last week, 8 receptions. He's probably the guy that's been on the field the most out of any weapon that they're going to have. Cade Otton at 3,500 is almost a slam dunk for me, or Chig. Again, no DeAndre Hopkins, so do you want to go with Chig as a limited pass-catching option there? I don't hate it. I mean, 3 points is his floor, but you're only paying $3,100 for him and can get a 9-point game. I still lean Cade Otton, but just know that Chig is down there as well. Now, if you want to see the total player pool that I'm going to be playing with this weekend, you can log on to Patreon. That's for those that want to go above and beyond in support of the channel and help support the channel so that we can continue to do this as frequently as we do this. It's not for everyone, so that's why we do these free videos on here, but I'm so thankful for everyone that has gone over there. Now, this is just the guys that we kind of talked about in this video. Jalen Hurts pairing him up with Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown if you want to go that route. Joe Mixon is one of my favorite, if not favorite, running back of the week. Kareem Hunt or James Cook, I could slot either one of them in here, but that is a little bit of a pricey start. T. Higgins, I would like to get Jamar Chase in there, but T. Higgins just to kind of run back against Philadelphia. I think Cincinnati's going to have to throw the ball a lot in this one. Sterling Shepard as my second favorite wide receiver for Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. Cade Otton, I don't want necessarily 2 Tampa Bay players, but I think they're playing from behind against Atlanta. Falcons defense might give me the best chance against Tampa Bay, right? If they have weak weapons, maybe Baker Mayfield makes some mistakes. Wide receivers aren't on the same page. Maybe there is an interception or 2 for Jesse Bates and crew. And that leaves me $5,500 to go get someone like Christian Kirk playing from behind in Green Bay. Josh Downs is a big play wide receiver that could pop one off at any moment. Charbonnet, if Kenneth Walker's out, Jalen Waddle again, if Tua is there and no Tyreek, or he's injured or he's hampered or he's 70% in the game, Jalen Waddle could get some good usage. Dontavian Wicks, if Jaden Reed is out, there's a lot of options. Calvin Ridley with no DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not saying I love the play, but maybe you go and get this 24-point game out of Calvin Ridley for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than the fact they're playing against Detroit, who's not great against the pass. And if Joe Mixon is a little bit too expensive for you, here's an alternate one with James Cook, T. Higgins, Jalen McMillan, Chig. You can still save a little money from there. Jaden Reed at 67. Maybe you don't love that one. So who else is around that volume? Josh Jacobs against Jacksonville, same team, right? Just a terrible defense. DJ Moore going up against Washington. I talked about loving that. James Conner against Miami. Teams have been able to run down Miami's throat all season because they haven't had to do too much because they haven't had Tua. So teams just hand the ball off. So James Conner, there's a lot of guys in a good spot. So I kind of lean this one, even though I really want to get Joe Mixon into my lineup. I appreciate you watching this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out. All of our tools are down in the description below, whether it's Patreon, your free Rotowire access, or if you're tired of losing in Vegas and you're losing your own money and you want to use some of the house money, we've partnered with GDC to give you the best access to user promotions happening in your state. It automatically shows you the 10 best promotions. So your deposit 10, get 100. Your deposit 5, get 50. Your play 5, get 250. All of those are down there. Whether it's legal in your state or not, it's going to show you the best options for you in your state automatically. And it's updated daily, so make sure you continue to come back and check it out. Again, that is down in the description below. If you want to head over to the Discord and connect with other viewers like yourself, please click that down in the description and hop in the Discord chat so we can talk a little bit more about your lineup, your plays, your tickets, and maybe you have stardom send questions because my chat half the time is smarter than me. More than half the time is smarter than me. I appreciate you watching this video, and hopefully the next time that I see you is down in the comments and in the green.